Hey there, I'm Eternal, and I'm an object show fan that has barely watched any object shows. We have to fix that. Let's play Object Catchup. Hello and welcome into Object Catchup, the series where we discuss object show episodes right after watching them, whether they're new or old, famous or unknown. It doesn't matter. We will get to it all. So today's episode is gonna be on a little bit of a special. I'm pretty sure that it's gonna take up nearly all of the time of this video. But yesterday, WBS2 released the second episode titled Spitballerz. It's half an hour long. But with that, of course, we have this entire series to catch up with, starting off with season 1, which is titled UBS, with the B being in square brackets. All right. We will be watching this as it's titled season 1 to head into season 2 WBS with the B in square brackets sometimes. The first episode of WBS even reached 100,000 views, which implies that it is part of the big leagues, although I have personally never actually heard of this show at all. It is from this YouTube channel, fhizzle or UBS OSC, with 3,800 subscribers, which the only thing on this channel really seems to be UBS itself. It seems to be a possibly custom channel made specifically for the publishing of this series. But yeah, I honestly just don't know anything about it. We just have to start watching it and find out what it is all about. So we start at the beginning, which is the first episode of UBS. It is titled How to Ruin a Dollop in 50 Minutes. Let's go. Hello, I have just finished watching UBS 1. So, since I've just finished watching UBS 1, we get to, talk about it. So, this show is immediately, of course, very noticeably got a big case of the BFB. This show is very much so trying to give off the vibe that BFB gives out, because the BFB, that early BFB vibe, is a vibe that's very desired across many object shows, and in fact we're trying to do that here. So the first couple of minutes end up just being kind of the characters talking to other characters. We're starting to introduce characters, we're starting to see characters, their dynamics, what is going on, right, all of that jazz. And it does all happen pretty quickly. We start off with, for example, Chalk, which is this kind of like character that ends up in chaotic situations. There's a pink button type character that doesn't really like them. There's Glue and Folder, which are kind of friends. Then there's this slimy kid that gets into trouble situation with their little kid group of the Clippy and like this yellow coin. Then there's Window that's really upset about that and complains a lot all the time. There's the water bottle, soccer ball, which is a big friend with the tire swing, right? As well. Then there's newspaper that's a little bit more reasonable. Water bottle, I don't really know about water bottle. Thermometer is also friends with the fellas, right, with those two that I mentioned before, and they brought over to see the cool crayons that are on the ground, which the strawberry was like, yeah. So at least now the strawberry's friends with the chocolate. Like, we're starting to understand who's friends with who's got who. You can kind of understand it. So they got a friendship going on. Then there's the teapot, which wants to find out what's in the wallet, even though it's money. Then eventually the walls get flung all the way over. There's also the friends over on the blue fella, the rug. Then there's like some sort of blueprint, a bandana, also like, I don't even, scissors, yeah. Until eventually the crayon fellas that they found on the ground mysteriously, they draw a stick figure with it, or at least the stick figure gets drawn, and then boom, spawn. And then we have ourselves an intro. It's a very teapot intro. It's a very nice intro, to be honest. Actually, a very high effort. It's very solid. In the way that things happen. So I actually really enjoyed that intro. Absolutely. Again, it's very teapot, but it's very nice. And then we get to find out the name of the show, which is the Untitled Blank Show. So the Untitled Blank Show, Untitled is apparently the name of our host here. So we have Mr. Untitled, and then it's a blank show, whatever that means. Um, And then eventually we end up having the most BFB scene of them all, which is the battle to win a prize. And then they eventually say, "What's the prize?" And they say something that doesn't really make that much sense. But then eventually everyone's enamored. Then we get to find out everybody here. We don't actually get to see everybody immediately, which I am going to say is a fair enough. It's a little bit bold to not show everybody in that scene and eventually make like 10 minutes. Because, for example, in like animatic, like example of animatic, like the reason why the first episode ends up about 40 minutes is because you end up having 20 minutes before anything happens, because you just have to need to have everybody have their own interactions, right? In this case, of course, you have a roughly small cast, but like we just end up having like that situation where not everybody gets introduced immediately. So we're learning about some characters, but there's many more. So there's like a blueberry, there's some perfume, a nail, a sponge, a shovel, freaking it looks like a microphone, right? Like they don't quite get introduced yet, and eventually we get to see them in the challenge. But yeah, eventually they go and form teams. So the first team that form is to Team Crushers, even though they have more team members than is needed. Apparently, having even numbers of team doesn't matter, which, you know what, fair enough. I don't think the host ever said, but it was a literal requirement to have like that specific amount of people on the team. So, you know what, fair enough. Um, they're the Team Crushers. Then the first team to form is called the One. They're not the first team to form, but we'll say that they are. These end up being kind of low stakes team formings, you know, but that's fine. We end up seeing, you know, the sort of the groups, the friend groups, they form with each other. They sort of combine in a miss and mash of whoever asks, and then sometimes an uninvited guest joins, whether it's Chalk on the last team or Window on this team. Then eventually Blueberry ends up, who's like dying, ends up titling the team Visrubnim. Vis Visrubn. Visrubn. Okay, which is a great team name. I'm a big fan of it. So great job to that team. Then eventually we Team 5 ends up getting the name Team 5 because for some reason they're not allowed to have the for some reason that team doesn't get to have a team name. Untitled is interesting. Untitled as a host has currently struck me as a very normal. Untitled has done like almost zero weird things except ignoring questions. That's the only thing they did. It's like, yo, what's cool about this prize? Go form teams. Yo, what teams are uneven? Time for first challenge. You know, like that's the only thing. They seemed a little bit neglectful of any inquiries that they get. But you know what? I'd rather a host that's neglectful than a host like Ford at any question that they go, nope, you're dead now. That's my impression of a screeching sound. Right, so I don't mind the way that this host acts. It's more, I think, stable. The last team ends up calling the boards because Chalk happens to be bored, so that all makes sense. And then we have ourselves the teams. Of course, I don't exactly know the who's gonna be a strong team, is gonna be a weak team. But if I was gonna say immediately, a team Crushers is looking all right. They look like a team with quite a bit of conflict with them. I feel like the first half team would get along with the second half. To be honest, the boards does strike me as mostly a coherent team. There is Chalk, which, however, the thing about Chalk is that Chalk is a problem if you're annoyed by them, but they're not really going to interfere that much. So they seem relatively fine. Team One also seem relatively chill with each other. The Visrub team is okay. That team seems average. They should be safe majority of the time. And then there's Team 5, which I don't really know much about them. A lot of the characters on that team didn't really get introduced. Challenge. Build a house. Literally any house. If you build a house, you are safe. Apparently, because what happens is that so the host says build the worst house ends up being up for Ilum. However, Untitled doesn't wait. Like as soon as there's any house, they'll go, yep, you're safe. Which means that you actually just have to build a house. Even though like I understand that speed isn't key. In this case, speed does end up being key because Untitled doesn't understand their own challenge that they set up. Right? Because if they did, then stuff would be fine, but it's not, right? Because it just isn't. So yeah. The first team ends up building a house. Window ends up building some sort of shapy house. It makes sense that the window, the house, the things that are in house would know how to build a house. I always find building challenges very funny because it's like, why they so many shows do the challenge of build a house, and it's like, hold on, why are we being a construction worker is not that easy. You don't just do it. Like, have you ever tried to just build a house? It's not that easy. But whatever, Window manages to do it. They build a house that works, I guess. Eventually, for some reason, the dollop ends up melting away while they're building the house, so that's kind of tough. Eventually, the team for what team is it? Vern? Yeah, the team Vern end up just making themselves a house by making, like, I guess, an entrance more than a house. Untitled kind of let them off super easy there. That's not a house under any definition. I understand the idea that you could use themselves as a house, but like that's not a house. If a house gotta have 4 wall ceiling. That wall had like one wall and a door, but it didn't have a ceiling. It didn't have anything like. They could have put themselves in a formation to make more of a house style, but what they did was not a house. Absolutely. So in that case, Untitled, you were a mistake. That team absolutely cheated themselves off into a victory. Eventually, the one ends up using the glue to try to stick the base of the wall together, which is doesn't really end up working. Either way, they don't have a house either. They have one wall, which is different than a house. I feel like we're misunderstanding what a house is. Like, you can be really basic about the concept of a house, but you still gotta be walls all around, enclosed space, right? And then ceiling. You can't just not. You need minimum those things, and then you can classify a house. Okay, but if you just have one wall, you're not a house. Like, Untitled, please. Eventually, that team end up, because of the using glue, end up crumbling apart. So they end up with freedom. To be fair, the other team has a really good house. So the one ends up being up for elimination. I think, yeah, the team that formed first with water bottle, scissors, bandana, sticky note, wallet, and disc. Well, sticky note, not a blueprint. Really looks like a blueprint, to be honest. But yeah, sticky note. My prediction on the eliminated character here, I'm not really sure. It could be uh, I I don't really know. I mean, it's episode 1 of a large cast show. Eliminations, it's never quite so easy because you haven't ever seen that much of the character, right? It is a vote to eliminate. Sticky Note did throw, so I'm gonna guess Sticky Note. Although I could see a character like Disc that kind of didn't show up. Okay, it's either Sticky Note or Disc. In my opinion, between them two, because Disc didn't do a damn thing. But Sekino did wrong in the chat. Like, they did bad. They did a bad performance. So that's my prediction. I don't know. I'm also wondering, how does this series have 4 episodes and then there's a new show? I have a feeling this might be a cancelled obvious show that I'm currently watching, but whatever. Let's head into episode 2 to find out what's going on. Ready to smack. Actually, before I do that, I'm just gonna say a quick little thing. That challenge was so fast. That challenge for a big, for such a large cast, that challenge went by very quickly. And honestly, I was impressed by how quickly but still understandable that challenge was. It honestly made sense. There was nothing off really about it. To be honest, that was it was cool. So yeah, it's time for UBS 2. As I previously said, ready to smack. Let's watch it. Let's talk about it. Let's do all of that. Alright, I have just watched UBS 2, Ready to Smack. So, first of all, we have ourselves a little bit of an elimination after, of course, we have the BFDI joke at the beginning with the initial line of the series. 15 total votes. I completely forgot that, yeah, that would make sense. A first series that is happening for the first time would have a small number of votes, like 15. Of course, I'm looking at the views now, and it's like, oh my god, this is gonna have 1,000 votes, but nah, 15. Isn't that crazy? But Eventually, turns out that Bandana gets eliminated. I'm not exactly sure why. You can argue that 15 is not a very representative it's like size, sample size. So I don't know. Well, goodbye, Bandana. You get eliminated, which means you fucking dissolve from humanity. You are dead. You are no longer a person, I think, as far as I'm aware. So that ends up being the penalty for losing. So now we know that is the penalty for losing. Untitled is mean in that aspect, and they also murder Dandelion for interrupting them. So they're getting a little bit more upset. To be fair, they are getting interrupted rather frequently. But yeah, I don't know. They're starting to do a little bit more insane hosty behavior, you know. So it's going to be interesting to see. So everybody has a block of ice and there's a baton inside the ice. Bring me the, not the ice, bring me the baton and you're safe. That is the challenge. What I think is the challenge, it's all right. It's all right. You know, it's kind of like the last one. You either do a thing or you don't do a thing. That makes sense to me, especially in these many team situations and many people around. Sure, early challenges can be this style. I'm hoping that they eventually, switch up a little bit because I prefer challenges where every team gets to go, like judging challenges. However, the challenge is fine. Team 1 immediately is safe after just cracking open the eggs, which is, in my opinion, obviously the best idea because melting that amount of ice just takes so long if you just don't have, like, you know, some sort of lava or extremely hot thing. So, in general, it's a way better idea to try to break it open, whether it's with somebody, maybe dropping it from above. Ice is pretty fragile on that aspect. I would have maybe considered it, but I guess you can't really grab such a large block of ice reasonably, so that makes sense. So, yeah, it gets shattered by scissors. A bunch of teams try to use a leaf blower on it, which again it works, but slowly. The thermometer is in fact hot because for some reason the heat it is. So they do end up hugging the ice and eventually warming it down while Naley ends up cracking it and stuff. So eventually they manage to tag team it and get the baton out. Meanwhile, the team, the ultra strong team, the one with window on it, the snowball guy, the snowball archetype, ends up trying to break the ice. They're very slow at it because they're kind of dumb. I mean, the slimy fella's kind of dumb. And then the other team is just also using the lead blower because they are, team 5, I think, because they have nothing else to do. So then they're like, okay, we need to fetch shovel again. And they do fetch shovel again. But eventually it's just going to be too late because the Crushers figured it out. Look, using a leaf blower isn't going to get you any type of safety immediately, but maybe in the long run, yeah, sure, you can. That would be safety. You would end up being safe. We end up having an interesting line there from Windows saying, haha, you did unsportsmanlike behavior, now they're going to vote you out. I'm going to be curious to see if that does happen. My prediction is no, because usually how it tends to go with this type of thing is it's like, how do I say it? People, I like to imagine that people are contrarians, and usually if someone tells them to do a thing, they're not going to do the thing. That's what I think. However, we'll have to see if that applies to here, of course. Other than that, I don't really know who could be eliminated because but yeah, that's the only thing that might work against Clip's favor. It's because there's nothing really going for any of their team. Shovel technically was working against them because they were used by the other team, right? So they were technically helping the other team, but they were used as a tool more than as a person, right? They didn't decide, oh yeah, I'm gonna go help them. They were grabbed and shoveled by the other fella. You could argue there maybe wasn't a lot of resistance, so maybe Shovel themselves could go, oh, we should have been faster, oh, you shouldn't have allowed it, oh, you should have fallen back, all of this stuff. So Shuffle does give me vibes of potentially eliminated contestant here. Although I did, of course, get it dead wrong the other time. Because the other fellas, I don't know, they didn't do it much. Like the freaking stamp, they didn't do anything. The fella that got revived didn't do anything. The chocolate bar didn't do anything. The dandelion only died because of the host, right? Like a lot of these characters just didn't do anything, which makes sense considering the episode's 4 minutes. But like, I think you just gotta have it a little bit longer now, because like when three of the characters that are up for elimination just aren't basically aren't in the episode, right? They didn't do anything. It's like, hold on, well, what's going on? It's one of those. This is one of those types of challenges that one of those types of episodes that kind of leaves me wanting. It's like, okay, but what was you doing? What were you doing? Why were you doing? Right? Because every team is like two people trying to break dance. What the hell was the other people doing? It's that type of. That's the type of debate. It's like, I want to know what's happening to the other people. We have this large cast, but conveniently, like half of it is never doing anything at one time. It's like, where are they? They just disappear until convenient. Like for that team that's up for elimination, there was just one person holding the lead blower. What the hell was Chocolate Bar doing? What the hell was Friggin' doing? Like, you gotta be doing something. You can't just be sitting there being useless, right? Surely that's not the plan. Like, go far, like, whatever. And if it is the plan, let me know. Instead of them just sitting there and one person trying to do anything, right? And it's like, bro, whatever. That's the type of episodes where, like, I kind of wish that they shared a bit more of who's doing what, because every team always shows that there's two people doing anything, and then four people mysteriously vanished. But oh well. Time for episode 3 now. Episode 3 is titled "What's in a Drawing?" Let's find out what's in a drawing. It's 1,000 words, apparently. Alright, I have just finished watching UBS 3, What's in a Drawing. So, we begin the episode here by having a couple of people, do their chit chatter and stuff, and then they accidentally kill a water bottle with a boulder, because it just so happens that water bottles can indeed get crushed by boulders. So they tried to recover them, however, Untitled. And Untitled is okay. So Untitled is this interesting little character now, because like they are sort of mildly like, I don't know how to describe them. They're mildly mundane until they get bothered any more than one time. Like they have the temper of a potato. Like they will friggin' get bothered one time, go, okay, sure, and then the second time they get bothered, they're like, screw off. That's basically how this character operates. So yeah, get bothered, water bottle. Okay, after the elimination, then we have our votes, 51 votes, and we end up seeing Thimble, I believe, eliminated, which is, gotta say, wait, is it Thimble? Yeah, I think it is. But they get eliminated. They weren't exactly a very interesting character. I'm not sure I understand why they were necessarily eliminated, because they were the one that was doing a semblance of challenge, which kind of thinks about it. So I don't know if I necessarily agree, but all right. Then we have ourselves an intro here for UBS, where we have our following challenge. What is the following challenge? It is to draw. Very simple. Draw. Best drawing wins. All right, then. We have a very basic challenge here that can be, well, done by each team in a couple of minutes, and then we have another quick challenge. To be fair to these videos, they are managing to get themselves very quick little challenges, like we're getting challenges that can be done rather fast. So that just makes me so much more interested in WBS. How are those episodes 40 minutes when, like, one of the main aspects of this is how it manages to keep itself short? Like, I'm finding that interesting, because I have no idea what's going to happen. That's going to make these episodes so much longer in the second season. But yeah, we eventually decided to not have any recovery because somebody dared to ask it for water bottle to get back a second time. So we end up having a drawing, which is apparently bad, from the newspaper. Folder eventually thinks of drawing Untitled. Will they gain a couple of pencils And CD ends up being apparently a drawing tutorial. So the conveniently placed DVD player shows the DVD. I enjoy this gag. It's kind of like the type of gag where book it just so happens to be a book about literally everything at the same time, right? I think that's kind of a fun gag in BFDI, right? So I like the gag of like CD being a CD for literally anything like possible, to be honest. So yeah, acquire pencil, draw, and they proceed to do it. So good job. Then they already marked themselves off as a win early, which, you know what, to be fair, so far in the other challenges, you just had to do it, not do it the best, like with the house challenge. So I technically understand why they're overconfident, because by just doing something, you're usually safe. Um, then we have Perfume is very undecisive about what to draw, so they think about maybe drawing gloves, so they try to draw a glove. Then Clippy draws a little house with a freaking storm over it, so there we go. That's pretty cute. Good job, boys. The fellas end up doing well. So then the folder submits. Hold on, what is the folder? Yeah, the folder draw foldy or the folder. What are you called? I don't know, but I can't decide which one of the two it was. But they draw untitled and end up being safe. Shovel draws a random face, so good job. Then we have a battery getting drawn last second by the thermometer. So they end up being because Perfume can't decide. So then here we have a very interesting ranking system. So we're ranking in like the blind ranking style, to be honest, right? Like, the in YouTube Shorts when it's like rank these, but gotta put them number two before you know the list. So that's what this fella's doing. So they rank the one and third. Then it would probably be better to go faster because you'd be super unlikely to vote something as the worst if it's the first thing you saw, regardless of whatever it is. So yeah, submitting first was absolutely a W move on that part. Then we end up having the freaking okay, so hold on. The storm is a 1. The freaking face is a 4. The drawing of Untitled themselves, which by the way, that drawing was drawn with chalk, which is a green chalk. How did the drawing end up black? That is not what should have happened. Um, that is incorrect. We did not have enough attention to detail to be capable of making it green. Even though I do think it was green and it was submitted, at least I saw it for a split second. I swear it was green. But okay. Untitled does not like it. Maybe it reminds him of his evil brother Titled. No, I don't. I don't know. And then the other team automatically gets 2. So the boards are up for elimination. So who's gonna get eliminated? I don't really know here. Maybe. Okay. So newspapers drawing sucks apparently. So, well, we don't ever get to see what it is. So it might just be bad. And then soccer ball was mean about it. So I'm gonna say soccer ball gets eliminated. My opinion is that soccer ball is gonna get eliminated because they were just mean. Maybe we could have somebody like Bull eliminated because they weren't part of the challenge because they were dead. And they couldn't get revived because of the throw that the other team did. So that is something. Then, but my prediction is soccer ball because they were a little bit mean, even though like Chalk didn't do anything against Foley, at least tried. Sponge tried to recover them. The button didn't really do anything in this episode, I guess, and the swing tire actually defended the newspaper drawing, which I think is very nice. So I think Soccer Ball ends up being the best option as far as getting eliminated, but I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to find out in UBS 4, which is still the latest episode of UBS, although it is 9 months old. Well, in fact, all the episodes are 9 months old before the series gets, I think, cancelled. I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to find out by watching UBS 4, The Smoked Goat. It's also the longest episode. Let's go. Alright, I have just finished watching the 4th episode of UBS, and currently the latest episode of UBS, The Smoked Goat. So, I was actually rather a fan of this episode because, one thing that I've always said, right, is that in these shows, usually the most important time is episodes, I think, 4 through 7. That's the first big moment, because at the first couple of episodes, we getting to discover the character. So we just kind of need to see them be in their default states, right? So that's all good. And then, right, when we start getting to the episodes 4 to 7 range of this type of show, that is when we need to start focusing in on starting character arcs, Character need to start liking or disliking each other, right? They need to start forming bonds, alliances, other things, right? Just stuff that needs to start happening for a potential act 2 later, right? The situation needs to start changing by this moment in the show. And that is the thing that this episode absolutely nails. I think that this episode is longer than the previous episodes, right? But it's longer than the previous episodes with purpose, with a reason. It's having the characters interact. It's having them properly, develop, starting to feel like, oh, I don't like this fella. They're scary. They're a bully. Oh, I like this fella. I misjudge you, right? Like, we're starting to do stuff that is interesting and that is good, right? So I like that, absolutely, I really do. But we start with the fact that they officially lied about the alliance back a couple of episodes ago because they got first place, which they didn't. But we end up having the elimination. So elimination is going to happen. However, the voting sheet just so happens to be chopped up, like to fly over in the wind, and eventually be chopped up by scissors into 4 pieces that scatter everywhere. Yet again, Untitled continues to be a relatively chill guy, but that will absolutely not take anything bothering them. Like, they are so, like, they're very consistent, to be fair, Untitled. They're just a guy that's gonna be chill, host fella, right? Not gonna do anything crazy, but they're only gonna not do anything crazy if you don't bother them. They'll do something crazy if you bother them more than like half the time. So don't bother Untitled. You'll be fine. You'll be on the nice list. But if you dare ask a question, it's over for you, right? So yeah. Then we end up having the challenge being, since we have split up into 4 pieces, the paper, they're flying everywhere. And now you have to go find a piece of the voting sheet. If you find it, you're safe. If you don't find it, you're not safe. That's how that works. Because there's 5 teams. This is a smart challenge, actually, in my opinion. Why is it a smart challenge? Because I think that it's a good way to bring in, right, the like, it's a good way to write a challenge that doesn't actually need the votes of the elimination, which I think is really interesting, because you can write this episode before the results of UBS 4, no, of UBS 3 have come in, right? You can work on this episode before that episode has had the voting, because that is one of the issues a little bit that object shows tend to have when they want to work on a fast schedule, is that you can't write an episode until you know who's getting out that episode, right? Because it just matters, right? It's a thing that is important. So it ends up being a little bit of an issue there. However, in this case, a challenge like this, where the eliminated contestants found out at the end, works because you can have the entirety of the team do the challenge, right? Like the boards, every single one of them does the challenge, and then one of them gets eliminated. I'm not sure if it necessarily matters, or like, I don't know if they started working on this episode before the previous one was over, but like, if they did or didn't, this is a positive detail of the fact that they did. All right, the fact that they did causes this positive, good detail to transpire, right? My prediction also for the way that this episode panned out is probably because of Button. They probably had some sort of arc already pre-planned-ish with like Chalk and Button. No, not Button, sorry. Platey. I think it's because it's pink, it looks like a pink button. And Platey, sorry. But that Chalk and Platey were gonna, reconcile eventually, find out about each other. But then, like, we needed to do something about that in this episode because they were going to get eliminated. So it can both be a response to not knowing the elimination, or this episode can be a response to knowing the elimination, right? Because that way you can have the chalk and play the reconciliation right before the elimination. So at least we can end that. We can do like speed run the arc basically. We can just fucking speed run, right? Um, so that is another reason why they might have done this challenge in the way that they did this challenge. All right. Because other than that, I wouldn't exactly know why they would do that challenge like that. Other than just they felt like it. So a couple of teams have it really easy. Team one ends up literally just winning for free because they, it just so happens that the voting she ends up within the wallet. So yeah, that makes sense. So good job. Then a couple of teams, we end up having Teapot has a pirate boat now, which, yeah, that's not a detail that we knew before. But to be fair, we didn't ever actually need to know that, right? I dislike random details getting thrown in, but only when it doesn't make sense, like we would know about it. But like we have never interacted with water, so yeah, sure, maybe one of them can have a boat, like if that's not a detail that comes up in the conversation. Oh, hey, by the way, did you know I have a boat? Like, the sort of thing that happened. So it makes sense that it would only prop up now. So sure, but we got to remember that we have a boat in future episodes, which, I mean, they don't exist future episodes, but like if they ever do exist, I gotta remember to have it in the way that it is. I'm discussing this as if this isn't a cancelled show, which I don't know if it is. WBS season 2. I'm going off the metric that this show isn't necessarily cancelled, because usually I think the hiatuses are important. Like we have like, no, for example, even IDFB, right? IDFB never got cancelled. IDFB is just on a hiatus, very postponement, so. Like maybe this could be on a hit, I'm never counted the fact that it could come back someday. But eventually we have a bunch of teams heading into the forest, all right, because they do that. So yeah, the team here that decides to split up, the boards end up deciding to split up into various chunks of two. That is probably the best strategy because you can go all together. But the thing about, okay, so what is the best way to find the thing? To be honest, I don't really know. I'm not 100% sure what the best tactic is to find the thing, because at the end of the day, it's always going to have that metric of randomness to it, right? However, having duos that can sort of check around them, it works, right? Because I think, if there's an enclosed area, have people look in all directions, and if it's a really wide area, then I think we should just have people look in different sections because, yeah, especially if it was something big to find. If something small to find, then maybe more people could go together. But I think the idea of splitting them up into duos is not a bad idea there from that team. Porter decides to cheat and try writing the votes themselves to Untitled. Untitled believes it for a moment, but nope, it's actually written in Times New Roman instead of Comic Sans. So yeah, they're probably dead. R.I.P. Then what teams tries to do that? Oh yeah, they try to dig underground. Shovel correctly states that how the hell would it end up underground? They decide to force Shovel to dig underground anyways, and it just so happens that it's there. Um, look, Shovel, you have a good logic. You do have it. But unfortunately, sometimes BFB style shows, they are not going to adhere to the logic of Earth and physics and stuff. But like, I understand and I agree that it was a dumb idea to dig underground because that would be bad. But like, look, in this case, it was underground. We kind of taken the L on this one. It was underground, and yeah. Then we end up having a couple of other people. Like, you see, yeah, you have the newspaper arc about being an artist. They consider themselves kind of egotistical. Chalk eventually saving Platey from the hole. So, they're friendos now. OMG, you saved me from the hole of wisdom. and then they go in the forest and stuff. Then we have the scene with the slimy and Window. Window is another one of those fellow egotistical characters who ends up climbing to get it. I don't even remember. It was like the coin. Yeah, the coin fella ends up grabbing it. Good job. Untitled just pops up every now and then to just take it, regardless of where the team is. They will just friggin' take the thing. Then the thermostat and the perfume are just debating which direction to walk. They are thermostat, in my opinion, is correct. Like, if you walk in a straight line and if you walk in turns, it doesn't matter because, yeah, like, we're just gonna be in the same place. Blueberry just finds it in the meanwhile. Now them two are talking, so technically thermostat's correct. However, unfortunately, they get stolen by Platey because, of course, they also headed into the forest, which Chalk told them to do. They throw the paper at Chalk, which ends up doing a couple of flips, and then Untitled takes it, which means that team is safe. They were almost up for elimination 2 times. That team has a tendency to not to be very good at challenges. I must say, that team has struggled consistently all of the time. Like, I don't know what it is about them, but they're not making a strong team here. They're just struggling. Other teams are just making it through without really like doing that much. Like, one team literally had the dumbest idea ever: dig underground to find the thing that the air dispersed, and it worked. But like the boards are just absolutely fighting for their lives out here. I mean, if any other challenge happens, I really hope that they can get saved because currently they're absolutely struggling. I need to hope that they can have some extra tasks, but Chalk might be sad now. I don't even know what's going to be happening. That team is looking tough. And then we end up, well, of course, discovering that who's safe. It is indeed everybody. I originally predicted, I think, Soccer Ball getting out. Nope, I do not understand the votes of this at all. To be honest, I mean, I get why Plady would be eliminated because they really didn't do anything in that previous episode. However, they're not really that bad, Like, I don't know. To be honest, the voting patterns there, I've not understood them too well here. But either way, we end up having Visrubn, which is the team of Thermostat, of course, since they get their thing stolen, being out for Edom. Who gets eliminated here? I mean, it's probably either Perfume or Thermometer, because I mean, I don't know though, because like you see, there's this thing where these characters are just sort of this show hasn't actually been that reprehensive to the character that makes a mistake, because Newspaper made a mistake, you're safe. The Soccer Ball was mean, you're fine, right? The freaking Folder drew the thing, they're also fine, right? Like, in general, the characters have been okay with the voting system. So even though Thermometer or Perfume feels like they would get out, maybe Perfume more than Thermometer, right? It's like, that's a thing. However, it's not feeling right. So that's why I would predict Tacky to get out. Because Tacky really barely has done anything in any of these episodes. They've got the syndrome of being kind of a copy of another character, namely be it the eye, in just the way that the asset looks and stuff. So they probably get copied. So, and people like unique characters, right? So I think they would most likely get out over anybody else under this body system. We won't find out because UBS 5 doesn't exist, and I don't know if it ever will exist. But yeah, you have a post-credit scene with the smoked goat, which is where the title is. It's interesting that the title is based on the freaking joke at the end of the thing. Like, what? To be fair, these titles haven't made too much sense, but yeah, that one's tough, So yeah. And then it's gonna be time for WBS. WBS released 5 months ago. WBS 1. It is 38 minutes long, which is longer than literally, if I'm not mistaken, the entirety of UBS combined by itself. So we're gonna have a lot to discuss. We're gonna have a lot to talk about. I'm really interested to find out what this show's even correlation with UBS even is. And yeah, this video has already over 100,000 views. We absolutely got to talk about it before we can watch WBS 2, which is the new video. Let's go. Let's do all of that stuff. Let's go. Okay, I have just finished watching WBS1 Bait and Switch. So, there is, of course, an industrial quantity of things happening in this episode. So, we have to get I think do we cover the elephant in the room first? Okay, yeah, let's cover the elephant in the room first. So, this is season 2 of UBS, right? Which means that it's like the first season, as we eventually see Untitled say, was just abandoned. The guy just left. He just was like, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna do that and not be here anymore. So then he eventually comes back around here and goes like, "Hey, I'm out here, right? And we're gonna do another competition." So from a decision, we're scrapping the other season for the sake of doing this season. All right, which is certainly one of the concepts of all time. I mean, like, all right, so this season increases the scope of the last season by a considerable quantity. I mean, this episode is how long is it? It's 38 minutes long. 38 minutes long. And not only that, it's like freaking I don't it's well animated. There's so many characters, so many VAs and all that stuff, and there's just so much going on that it's like wow. So, as is with these shows, this is also a very BFB-ified style show, right? In the way that it is a large cast object show with a massive cast, teams, team names, the format, a lot of the jokes in it as well are directly borrowed, right? And like in general, we just have a lot of that style. It reminds me, to be honest, very much so of ODA 1. No, wait, does it remind me of ODA 1? I think it reminds me more of animatic, because the thing about it is that yeah, animatic battle 1 kind of had this vibe to it because of how long it was. Where the first like 20 minutes just sort of end up being talking with the characters. In fact, this should, if you think about animatic, I haven't watched Object Fool, but if you consider Animatic Battle as being that second season that's more popular, longer, more established, and a large cast to Object Fool, then this is very similar because it is a second season, higher quality, more cast, just more popular version of Untitled Blank Show, right? So in that case, I'm sensing a lot of similarities here between this show and Animatic Battle in just kind of the way that they arrive to be, right? Um, Personally, one I will always be a massive critiquer of large cast object shows. I think that they're preying on the impossible. I really do. I think that they're always preying on a near impossible goal, a near impossible task of getting it done. Like this show has a cast of 57, 57, and we are currently going for episode 2, which released 5 months after episode 1. So yet again, by this margin, we're doing an episode every like if we do an episode every 5 months, we roughly have like 2 episodes a year ish. Let's say 3 if we're kind, right? And we go a bit faster, 3 episodes a year. Then this 56, then 57. Let's say 2 get eliminated each time. How many would that be? That wouldn't be about 30 episodes. It'd be a bit less than 30. That would be around like 25 ish. Let's say 27 ish episodes because of rejoins and stuff. So let's say 27 episodes. 3 of them a year. That would be 3 years for 10. So then that would make it about 9 to 10 years that this show would take which is not the speed you wanna have, presumably. You know, like BFB is old and technically it's still happening in the sense that Teapot is. Right? That's not what you want. Like you don't want that. BFB was a mistake. Like you know, like I think a lot of people understand that. I don't know. The large cast of BFB is its main problem. But either way, yeah, this cast is too big. All right, cool. Anyways, let's talk about the show in its current state and not wander on the future a little bit. So we are getting the first very long amount of time ends up just being sort of seeing all the characters and we get to introduce them. I like this because of course we're getting to see them and we're getting to see them interact in the sort of ground area and the interactions are quite solid. We do get to more properly see the characters quite nice. Betty just kind of chill. Dot Swever's around. Knife is kind of chaos. I guess like kind of hyper when they hear of themselves. They're not necessarily attention chasing, but they're certainly attention like grabbing in the sense where like they'll grab the attention if they ever feel like it's on it. They try to push the attention when it's there, basically. Then there's newspaper, which of course we know about newspaper. Newspaper is the sort of egotistical, I'm cool, come on, when they're not really actually that cool. Um, and other people don't exactly think they're cool. Then there is the tire swing. The tire swing remains with the same thing we talked about. They're relatively relaxed. They move around. They're chilling. They work with whoever's around. Then we have a relatively chill looking bucket hat. The bucket hat fella is relatively chill. Then we have the ID card, I think. The card note fella. They are posh. I think they describe themselves as posh. They're relatively posh. They're like fancy, like they keep collections and stuff. They're expensive, right? So they're posh and they only want to necessarily talk with people of their own kind. In that sense. Then got Map, who's a pirate map, right? There's a yar me mateys, we are pirates, right? Which is all cool. So they're off looking for adventure. They eventually, or you can have a TCAT, but I'll talk about them later. Then you got Folder. Folder doesn't really do much of interesting in this episode, to be honest. Like really nothing special. They remain the same. I really had very little to say about Folder before in UBS, and I still don't really have much to say about Folder now. Folder really has not stuck with me, unfortunately. But yeah, then we go Fly Swatter. Fly Swatter really stuck with me. Fly Swatter is a very interesting little character. They're sort of that character where nobody really understands why what is in their mind is in their mind, but they're kind of scary. So we're not exactly going in to like try to not like nobody's really going to try to counter them too much or make too many questions because they're kind of worried about what the hell is going on. Like we don't know what their deal is, so we're just kind of going with them. Um, so yeah, they're sort of weird. They have the milk jar. Oh yeah, the milk jar. This one I haven't seen too much about the milk jar to be honest, but they seem to be relatively chill. They hang out with the PDA and the boombox. The not the PDA, the PDA. I'm thinking of the fucking teapot card. The music player, the iPod. What are you called? There's gotta be called like portable music player. There's gotta be your name. So like the MP. I'm gonna call MP3, okay? Because MP3 player, the MP3 player, which also seemed to be relatively fun. Those two seemed on the same wavelength. The boombox has some pretty wacky ideas. They're kind of cool, but like they're not necessarily trying to be cool. They appreciate coolness, basically. Like they are a fan of the coolness. They're like like yeah, right? That makes any sense. So yeah. Then the next characters that appear, Shovel appears. Shovel is still the same old Shovel. They're kind of their temper's not too high, but like they can get mad a little bit easily. But they're relatively useful in challenges. Very tall. Chalk remains the same Chalk. So good stuff here with Chalk. Man, I am so bored. Then here we got a gangster prankster duo, which is the Boot and somebody else. So they're part of the gangster one, although they weren't the primary one. Then we have ourselves the Clippy fella, which apparently wants to get down to silly antics, silly antiques, no antiques, silly. Just wants to just wants to get down to fun. They're like a fun character, trying to be fun and all that jazz, right? So that's all cool. Um, then we end up getting into the kite. The kite fella is sort of this hero. They're also kind of posh in a sense, but they're like this hero. I am the one who is all. They kind of remind me of Nonagon, by the way. Not that I'm speaking as them, remind me of Nonagon. But anyways, yeah, they're the hero throughout the episodes. Multiple times, people just call them over and they try to fly, and they just fly whoever's causing the nuisance away, which is like, yeah, that's fun. And then eventually they get their rope cut by Knife, which means that they're just stuck on the floor and they're like, "Release me! I do not deserve to be on the ground." So yeah, they're kind of they have ego in that sense. Then there's Cookie, which is just the very pessimistic, like dry character. They're just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to win. I don't want to lose. No, I like I don't want to win. I don't like you. I'm not your friend. I don't care about this. Right? We could do any yeah. So Cookie just hater 5,000. So that is Cookie. Then we've got who even is this? This Lemonade? You're not Lemonade. You're like yogurt. what, what is this? Now that I think about it, who are you? Who is this? Like I don't know. Because I was looking at it. I'm sure somebody said the name, but I don't remember what it was because I'm horrendous. But I'm horrendous at catching names. Like the only reason why I can catch some names at all is because it's an object show and I can look at them. That's objects. But like as far as regular names listen, I'm cooked so hard with names on a first listen. But yeah, freaking I'm gonna call you the lemon lemon shake. Okay. Yeah, they're very jolly. They're very jolly. They give me vibes of Bottle from BFDI and just the way they're like, yeah, let's be friends. Woo! Friends here everywhere. I love friendship is magic. That's My Little Pony. But like, yeah, they're all up for the friendship, which is pretty nice. Then there's Changey, which is still part of the friendship, with the soccer ball. So the soccer ball still friends with the Changey car ball, car tire swing. The tire swing, Changey, which I called coin last time, and then the soccer ball, which is the football. But I'm just saying, the soccer ball is the trio of like that first season. They're just kind of the buds. They're just friends. They get up to goofy antics. I don't know why in this initial scene they're trying to look at the sun. I don't know what their mission is. What is the goal? But I mean, I like the gag of like, oh yeah, if we eat enough carrots, our eyes will be good enough to look at the sun. Like, I like the line of reasoning. I just don't know why that line of reasoning is there. Like, why are you trying to look at the sun? What are you trying to defeat the sun? You end up turn nighttime or something, reflect the sun back at you. But yeah, they try that. It doesn't end up going well because looking at the sun is not a great idea. Then the recovery hole, which is a character that exists. I have to say character because they do speak and respond. So the recovery hole does look like a character. Um, I'm not sure if they like the hole itself is going to be a character or if there's somebody down there that's a character. It's kind of like the machine, the device, because like how is a hole a character? Good question, right? So it's like is there maybe somebody down there who's like operating a machine, the recovery machinery, and then just fucking throws the people all the time. I hope that's the case because that'd be funny, right? If we if we go down there and there's just like a blueberry, there's just blueberry operating the machine, right? Like that, like that'd be kind of fun, right? I think that'd be fun. Although, by the way, Blueberry's gone. I noticed that not everybody came back. I think I don't, because I can't exactly tell you from right now, right, from this exact moment, who is that made it, who didn't make it. To be honest, from the original, from UBS, but I swear like pretty much everybody did. But I didn't see Blueberry. I don't know if I'm blind, but I didn't see Blueberry. I guess again I'm looking here in order, but if I see Blueberry, I don't know where Blueberry went. But either way, so yeah, the recovery hole, which is a character, ends up being there. Stampy remains the same thing. We discovered that Dollop is actually made out of grease. So if you try to eat the Dollop, you will get cooked. It's a nice self-defense mechanism if you think about it. When you are, a character like Dollop. Yeah, Dollop is kind of weird to just say, I'm okay with this. Thumbs up emoji, right? Like they're kind of weird. Some people point them out. Then here we have the teapot. I call them tea kettle. The teapot. It's like, and then teapot just has the name of show. We have ruined everything that has tea. Object shows stop. Okay, now, but the teapot, if you remember, had a pirate ship back in UBS, which means that they now are a pirate, like they were a pirate back in the day. So they have this instant big connection with the map, which is trying to be a pirate in, I think, also a former pirate, because we do actually. I was gonna say current pirate. That was my original presumption, right? However, they're actually not a current pirate because you can see them in the post-credit scene, being like, what happened? What went wrong?" Right? Which implies that they were a pirate or a successful pirate, whatever they were, and now they're not a successful pirate anymore. So we have pretty much washed up pirates over on that team. And then there's Stampy. Not much to say about Stampy. They're just relaxed. They are one of the chill characters. There's really like they don't really get they haven't gotten off to a single antic. They're just kind of going with the flow. They're not a causer of many things. They're very sensible in the way that they're trying to, hey, don't do that. So they're very sensible, they're very logical, so that all makes sense. Then we have the what did you go, hat? No, baggie, right? Yeah, like the bag, which is definitely a hater. That is also a hater character. They're just pissed all the time. But they're different. But I do like it because they're a different style of hater character than the other hater character. Like Cookie is directly, no, because okay, how do I describe it? Cookie is deadpan negativity. Baggy is more like direct attack negativity, right? Like they're just direct, like shut up. Well, Cookie's like, I don't want to do anything, like that stuff. Then there's Cone. So Cone is this very awkward, awkwardly social fella who's like a super fan of chalk and stuff. So they try saying, "Man, I'm so bored next to the chalk," right? And all of that stuff. And then they end up writing, and then they write a diary very frantically. They're just kind of, they're very fail. They are like a fail. They're failing socially. All right, that's what Cohen's doing. And then they get trolled by when they go into the porta potty, because the porta potty ends up tippling over because of a bet that the pranksters made. Then there's Plady. Plady's just friends with Shaw now, by the way. That's just the thing. People like presumably just enjoyed the idea. Everybody loves enemies to friends arcs. So we had like one of those in UBS because there was only time for one before the show got freaking Omega cancelled to go make a show that is more complicated to make. But whatever. Me, when I canceled the show because I couldn't make it, and to then make a more difficult show, whatever. But then we end up having, Catchup packet and window. So Catchup packet and window still exist. Window remains that type of character. They're in the news. If you were to put them on a spectrum, I guess technically newspaper and window would be similar, very nearby, in the sense that like newspaper is kind of I'm cool ego style character. However, window is like aggressive, insecure, about their own coolness, but they're really trying, right? Like they're really trying to be cool. They're like, I want to be cool. So that's what they're trying to do, which makes that makes sense. Then a ketchup packet, don't know. There was so much to say about ketchup packet before. There's not much to say about ketchup packet right now. Again, a lot of characters they connect immediately. The others they don't really, because it's episode 1, right? You can't. Toothpaste is just scaredy cat style character. They're going with the flow because they're too scared to not really go with the flow. So they just end up being like, okay, you know. Then we have the freaking duo of the sticky note and the rug. Were you a rug? What were you? I don't. Carpet? Yeah, rug. Okay. Um, So yeah, those are the two of the alliance. They remain the same. I still will say that in the way that the things are drawn on the Siggy and the fact that it's blue, it looks way too much like a blueprint. Okay. And then they go hire some other people for the alliance, like Lever. Lever's there. Lever is relatively. I mean, they seem relatively jolly. They're relatively happy, and they look pretty responsible. But yeah, we don't get to see too much about them. The other prankster is I don't even know, like a skateboard? No, like a surfboard, I think, getting hung up. So those two make the prankster duo that are just way cooler than the rest of them. They end up tippling down the porta potty, which absolutely cooks everyone. Wax Candle, remember Wax Candle? I don't remember I mean, I do remember Wax Candle, but I don't really remember anything about Wax Candle, and I will continue not to remember anything about Wax Candle, because Wax Candle wanted to care they fucking murdered for like the entire length of the episode. So okay, I guess you won't get to see much Wax Candle. Which, all right, I mean, it's of course it's a character. It does usually, I would make the candle from II direct comparison. However, no, because the candle from IA comparison, I actually have to make the incense, which shows up um in like a moment. Incense is cool. The thing about incense is that yeah, they're just very candle. There's not much to say about it. Incense is exactly that. They're just spiritually sound. They have found ways of being, and they will be the ways to be, right? Um. So yeah. Then there's Marshmallow, which is a profile style character. They're just kind of, hey, remember this? I'm here too, right? Remember, I was here. I was also here. Me here. So yeah, and people don't really like them because it's not a great idea. Then, oh my god, Oliver Nub there with Wallet, who exists. The oh my god, there's so many characters in this show. I might have made a mistake trying to talk about all of them. Wallet still exists. I do like the guy that they make with Wallet with incense. Like, hell, the answer's all inside you. Money. That was the fun. That might be the funniest gag of the episode. That was hilarious. But other than that, thermometer remain relatively the same. I don't really see much. They're kind of not very smart, and their smartness is getting severely challenged by the stopwatch fella, who is very analytical and tactical. They seem to stare at people and try to just in general be more like how do I describe it? They're just kind of observing. They're very knowledgeable. They have a lot of knowledge that they've acquired. They pay attention. They're smart. And they're posh as well. So then they're doing that with Battery that absolutely gets pissed at that, but like a lot. They're like, no, I'm smart, right? Which fair enough. I understand that, but yeah. Then we have the trio, right? The kid trio, like the Jelly, which is always the fun fella. Then there's the Paperclip, who's I don't know what to describe Paperclip as, but they're just there. They're also part of like that fun gang with Jelly, they're relatively jolly. And then oh my God, so many characters. Bull exists. By this point in the episode, I started to catch the characters less. I'm not gonna lie. Like Icicle and Drum. What can I tell you about Icicle and Drum? Not much. Really can't tell you much because we're already like 40 characters in. Like, it's just a lot. So those fellas, they end up being relatively fun. No, I don't know. They're just chill. There's what? What did these characters do? Icicle's like trying to pop a thing and failed. Then Water Bottle has another friendo, which is the coffee. The fuck? What the hell? The coffee mug. No, no. What do you call it? Not a teapot. Like a coffee pot. What is a coffee pot called? Am I dumb? Does this thing have a name? Coffee pot? There's no way. That's right. There's no way. That's right. Hold on. Coffee pot. What is it? What are these called? Am I dumb? Are these like create a coffee machine? A kettle? Is it a kettle? Yeah, think I'm thinking about a kettle. Okay, whatever. I'm so bad. Anyway, yeah, those two are now a duo. You know, they're very sensible duo. Water bottle, so they're just duo. Then we have the freaking tiramisu, which is entirely just sad in this episode because of the Kaidi who fell down. So that's fair. Then there's more characters, which is like holy shit. These characters, I think, you honestly have the least screen time alongside their team. Like, there's the leap pad, and there's also the TV. Not much to say about them. They're gonna be 100% for real. There's really not too much to say. There's also this Avasti. I don't even know, but they're like a rock. They end up absolutely soloing the the fellas from the pirates by using a katana because katana are better than pirates. And remember, they're washed as pirates. They're kind of they're washed pirates. So yeah. Then they end up filing, and then Strawberry, who's the last character, ends up finding Untitled, and Untitled sends us to an intro. What do I think of this intro? Okay, so of course we have a more complicated situation because we need to have like 57 characters appear in the same intro. The intro is nice, although it does for some reason feel a little bit more it feels disorienting sometimes, I think, because the characters are popping in from every direction, but the background is also switching which way it's turning. So it makes a little bit of a disorienting experience. And of course, it's a short intro and it's very well animated. Like every character, the way they pop in and out and stuff is very good. I don't think we get to find out what WBS even means, but W. Yeah. So they end up offering 2 boxes as a prize. Not really sure why, but yep, 2 boxes. And eventually they go make teams, which they spend a bunch of time doing. You know what? I did like this team making process. I thought that the team making process was rather good. The team making process was nice because usually a critique that I have with team making processes is that there's very little drama to like there's very little of not saying yes, you know? I feel like a lot of the times in shows, the team making process is like, hey, who do you want to join our team? Yes, I would like to join your team. And then that just happens 20 times. Like, there's no conflict. Never somebody who's like, I don't want to join your team. It's like, oh, no, we have to only pick the good person, right? But in this team, I like that with, like, the Posh team, the Alliance, the other team, right? Like, I did like what was going on with the team of the hilarious antics eventually getting sent out because they were a serious team, right? Like they make sense, to be honest, which is nice. All right, so let's see who there is remaining. Okay, so what are these team names? Let's try to lock it down. All right. So the team name is the Middle Class. Indeed, indeed. Okay, so the Middle Class is, of course, that team. Theoretically, what do you think of this team? So it's basically goofballs and the posh people combined. Because the last 3 people were the duo of Chalk and Platy, which really would not give a shit about anybody else. They do not care about any other person in humanity. And then Cone, who's just tagging along with them. And then there's the posh people that was made by the ID card. So that is the stopwatch fell on the stamp, and the water bottle and the tea cat and the coffee pot. If this has a name, I'm gonna go and say, but I think it's a coffee pot. Anyway, so that's all there. What do I think of this team? This team is theoretically good. However, it's in a way too smart. Because the thing about it is that I think the card can make some pretty solid ideas. The stamp can make some pretty solid ideas. The water bottle can make some pretty solid ideas. The stopwatch can make some pretty solid ideas. The plate can make some pretty solid ideas as well, by the way. Which means that we just have an overabundance of people that want to be the deciding thing, right? That want to be the deciding leader, which means that this team is going to have a lot of trouble being capable of coordinating a challenge, which is going to put them at a very high risk nearly every time, because they're just a team that struggles to do that. So yeah. Then eventually we end up having the sharp shooter, so as Knife decides, because why not? Which is them, ball, the drum, icicle, bed, incense, and wallet. Is that the team? That's the team. Okay. What do I think of this team? This team, they just end up winning, right? Because wait, why did they end up winning? How does this team say it? Oh yeah, they just throw a knife. Right? Is that what they do? Uh, Hold on. I'm really trying to remember what they do with this team. Sure. Yeah, I think they just throw knife. Right? I think that was the plan that they eventually do. Um, yeah, because Knifey disappeared to go off with some rant. Somebody said knife, right? And then they eventually came back because of incense, and then they decided to line up all the balloons to throw. Okay, yeah. This team, I mean, we need to not have an over reliance on a character like incense and stuff. I think they might. I think, do they also have wax candle? I think they might. But if they don't have an over reliance on any singular, when every individual challenge, there's always gonna be somebody here with an idea. Like if you think Bull might have an idea, Wallem might have an idea. So I do think that this team has some pretty solid potentials. They've got energy, they've got speed, but they've also got calmness. So I do think that there's some pretty interesting minds coming in. Then there is the Rome Under Shovel's Head, Rush. I must say that is actually a cool team name. I ain't gonna lie. But this is the Window team that Window very hastily set up. However, it does end up being a team with a bit of potential. They just need to. I don't know. There's a lot of dead weight on this team. If it's a okay. Depending on the type of challenge, I feel like there's certain styles of challenges that are an absolute like a disaster. You know, like I don't know, but if it's that type of challenge that requires too much thinking, then I think they're screwed. Like if the challenge ever solve a crossword, like they're done for. Like maybe shovel and folder, but the others are absolutely cooked. But especially if it's a challenge that's kind of just power of friendship core, like build a structure. Like eventually, with freaking marshmallow there and the lemonade and the window trying to be cool and the sponge, like they'll eventually get something out of there. So that team has got some potential, but theoretically they're in a very struggling idea. Home Run, the team that is made by Soccer Ball. This team is in a pretty decent idea. They're very relaxed, kind of in the way that they are. They're kind of off from everybody else, I think. So they're just going to do the challenges in their own way. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I do think that there's a lot of ideas on this team and a lot of plannings, which means that usually, if they come up with a decent plan, they're going to win. If they come up with a not decent plan, I don't think they're ever clutching it up, basically. And that's what happens here. They don't clutch up. Then we end up having the Landlubbers, which is the pirate ship team. This team also gives me vibes. Okay, but the thing about this team is that they're going to try. This team is going to try. Whether it's the pirates, whether it's the katana, rock, I don't know your name, or the Clippy, or the Prankster Chill, or the Prankster Cool guys. Like, this is a team that's gonna do shit. If they're gonna, like, if there is a challenge that requires the team to do shit, then yes, I think they're absolutely nice. I just think that they could be struggling challenges that are like more individuality. Like, for example, in UBS there was a challenge called Draw a Picture. I think this team is cooked in a Draw a Picture challenge. However, in a challenge where they're just globally doing something like popping 100 balloons, they've got the minds and the energy and the commitment to just do shit. So I think that they're a pretty solid team in that aspect. Okay. So I do not mind that. Then we've got the team. No, Watanda's on this team. Okay, that's the Fresh Beats with a Z. This team is okay. There's not much to say about this team. They've got idea makers. I'm just not confident about how smart they are. Basically, like whether it's that trio of Boombox, MP3 player, and Milk can definitely, and Milk Carton can definitely cause things to happen. They're gonna get an idea, but I'm not too confident about the quality of idea. In this case, Boombox has a good idea, but we saw with the way that the Boombox did the song that is not always going to be a good idea with Boombox. So I'm worried about the possibility of failing miserably in a future challenge, because I feel like if it's a bad idea, they're cooked. Then eventually we end up having the team by Feinschmeckers, which is a team that Flyswatter named because they felt like it. This team is the trio of the Alliance, and then whoever else joined, which is Flyswatter, Newspaper, Glue, which really doesn't do anything in this episode, by the way. I didn't even mention Glue because I barely saw them. I literally didn't see them. Glue barely does anything in this episode, but they're chill. They're just a normal guy. And then Cookie. This team ends up being safe. They're pretty over reliant on Flyswatter, basically. The existence of Flyswatter on this team absolutely makes or breaks everything, because Flyswatter, as we saw in this challenge, just in the way they are, if they're gonna have an idea usually, and it's gonna be a weird idea. But if it works, it works. That's basically what it is. There's going to be a little bit of an over-reliance on them. However, while they're definitely going to over-rely on Flyswatter, they've got minds on their team. Glue is a relatively good mind, and the Alliance are actually relatively kind of smart. The sticky notes and the rug, they're relatively smart, actually. So there's a bunch of dead weight in there. But even if Flyswatter is not there, I do believe they'll be capable of having backup minds that do something. So this team, in my opinion, is in an extremely good position. I think the idea of getting Flyswatter into the Alliance was an elite tier idea, because they've got a very direct, clear-minded mind, a bunch of people that are not going to directly protest it against it, so they can just do the idea, and they're bold ideas, and bold ideas tend to work, which means that this team, in my opinion, is one of the contenders to get upper elimination the least amount of times. Absolutely, they look very strong. Then number 5 with extra cheese, I think, is the last team, which is kind of the others. There's really not much. There's not much to say about them. The thermometer and battery, they're the duo that's there. There's the lily pad. Like, a lot of the people that kind of didn't say anything. There's even a notebook in there, which, by the way, is one of I think the only character that doesn't really get mentioned before the team picking. So I really don't know much about this team, and they're not. They're just not. There's an absence of a mind in this team. That's the thing about this number 5 but extra cheese team. It's like, who here has got any type of attitude to do a damn thing? This feels like a team of followers. It really does. Because the lily pad and the TV are just going to tag along. The strawberry's not got the attitude for it. The ketchup packet is chill. The battery's too worried. The thermometer doesn't care enough. And this other character, I don't even know what they are. So it's like, there's not a leading figure in this number 5 with extra cheese team, which really worries me about them. I mean, I think that they're kind of screwed for this type of challenge, man. Like that. Like, that's tough, because who's gonna do anything on this team? It's like, I don't know, but eventually they end up having the challenge, which is pop 100 balloons. So, throughout the discussion of the teams, we've also kind of discussed this challenge at the same time, so I'm not going to go too in depth about it. However, it's like pretty much a challenge that exists. I will say the balloons are very unfairly placed for teams like the Feinschmeckers. They end up all on the ground, and then you can just chainsaw them from the ground, right? Or same thing goes with one of the teams with what the fuck was the other team? The team of the bro, what are they called? The middle class team, the team of chalk. Yes. Um. So that team also has it on the ground, but like the team of shovel, no, the window team ends up being extremely screwed from like moment one because they're just like everything is on the sky and they're just throwing it. Right? They end up being safe because they eventually find Knifey, if I'm not mistaken. However, it's like they were struggling. But yeah, yet again, there's a bunch of smart things like Feinschmecker ends up having a good idea. We also end up having a solid idea of the what team had the idea that I'm mentioning. I don't remember. Like Boombox in this case, for example, had a good idea, which was pretty well. As stated, the fine whatever had a good idea. The idea of using chalk to chop them up was pretty smart, right? Like they successfully calculated who in their team was the best at this challenge, and in fact, they did that correctly. They did everything right there. So a bunch of teams did pretty well. The teams for the eliminated team, what did they do wrong? They didn't necessarily do that much wrong. Like, okay, the team of soccer ball, right? The alliance team ends up being out home run. They end up being out roughly because they're just kind of not. Again, they had a plan. It was just kind of slow. Like the way they had to individually go one by one, they just didn't exactly have a good way to get to the balloons. That was kind of their issue. Like their tactic of using the paperclip, even as weird as it is, works as far as getting a weapon, but it doesn't work as far as getting there. Right, like they thought of the idea of how to pop the balloons, which was the hard part. However, they didn't manage to have the part of navigation, like how do we get to the balloons, right? Which is the exact same problem that the window team was having, right? Team Rush, that they were having that same problem until eventually they end up discovering another tact like the knifey tact, because knifey goes super fast, right? So they were gonna have that same issue until that moment. They were gonna be probably both up for Edom. And then there's the extra five, which he's, as I'm saying, there's just nothing there. There's just nothing to this team. Like genuinely, they don't have anything. Like there is nobody there that's gonna construct an idea, you know? Like there just isn't anything happening. And I don't there's nothing. Yeah, there just isn't a mind. There's not a mind on that team that's focused enough to properly think of somebody of a strategy. So they feel like they're gonna be cooked in every challenge from the beginning. I don't think they will, because I do think that in certain it depends on the chance. Like an on-off thermometer is an on-off switch in my opinion. Thermometer can definitely turn on, but when thermometer is at neutral, this team loses easily. But if thermometer wants to actually dare to fucking lead a team, sure, because the other people. Not happening. Maybe Catchup Packet, but Catchup Packet and Thermometer are the only two people I can see maybe leading a team here, because the rest are not. And if they're not having an idea, nobody does anything on that team. Who's getting eliminated on that team? I'd predict the lily pad, because I don't know who the freaking book, the notebook, maybe I'm predicting, because they didn't do anything. The voting system is vote to save and to eliminate. So then the person with the most eliminate votes after you subtract the save votes from the eliminate votes ends up being saved. This is an interesting voting system that has been tried out a few times. It hasn't. I don't think it's ever been tried out on the largest scale, right? Like I don't think the massive shows have ever quite gone for it, but as far as the medium tier shows, a bunch of them I've seen do this, and it works. They tend to be more vote to eliminates and vote to saves usually in these shows, I think. So it's going to be interesting to see. But my predictions for the eliminated contestants here are going to be Backy on Team Home Run, because new character in a group of returnees who's just a grumpy guy who you don't like to be around. And then the number five with extra cheese, I'm predicting that notebook because they just didn't do anything. They're the like a lot of the characters on the team are relatively neglected in terms of getting introduced, but that notebook the most so by a mile. So that's my prediction. I've talked about this episode for a long time, haven't I? It's time to head into WBS2, which is, of course, the latest episode. It is titled Spitballerz. Let's go. Okay, I have just watched WBS2 Spitballerz, and well, it's gonna be time to talk about it. So, we start off with, of course, a couple of interactions and things about, like, Kaidi and stuff. We're starting to learn a little bit more about people, getting some more interactions as well. However, then elimination. Elimination time is one of the first things that occurs with the 1,244 total votes from WBS1. I don't think there has ever so far been a voting decrease, because if you think about the UBS 2 to 4, it's always increased. I think, unless, I don't know if UBS 4's number actually was higher than UBS 2, because we didn't get to hear what the number was. Like, you can sum it, but I don't know if it was higher. Actually, it might have been lower now that I think about it. So I might be wrong with that detail. But we start off here with number 5 with extra cheese, which is the team that truly just didn't do a damn thing. We end up having a challenge here where CRT ends up getting the most votes, which I actually think is interesting. At positive 369, despite being a new fella who didn't do that much. I think they get heavily boosted by the fact that they had the scene at the end of the episode where they were kind of, sad. So there at the end of WS1, so you get the immediate sympathy of people going, yeah, sure, I will like it, because they felt bad for the thing that had just happened. But then eliminated is Catchup Packet, which surely was one of the characters of all time. I can't lie. Um, yeah, no, there was nothing much to them, I must say. They were kind of having a thing with Window, but not really, because Window's on the other team. Speaking of which, Window is harassing the elimination the whole time by being an annoying viewer. So they get zipped up, mouth shut, no more Window in this episode. Well, I mean, we do get to see a lot of Window in this episode, but we don't get to see Window talk in this episode because of that, detail. So, all right, that's all cool. Then we end up having some other things. To be specific, we have the other team's elimination, of course, where eliminated ends up being Baggy because, no, they're just bad. They're just not great. This was hilariously obvious from moment zero. Nobody on that team really had any, like, they're the outsider on their team 100%. They're a mean character. They just gotta go. You just gotta go. No way. You don't care about the competition. You don't like anybody. You don't get along with anybody. You're just a hater. You make the room negative. It's just not a good character. They gotta be leaving. And then we have here. We do have the confirmation of double elimination, which, I mean, it was pretty clear from the last episode, but sometimes they do one person eliminated on both, like on either the two teams. But here we do have an eliminated contestant on both teams, which makes a double elimination, which confirms what I said before. Currently, this show would be roughly probably around the 27-ish episode range that it would have, which doesn't sound like a lot. It does sound like a lot when you're thinking about the fact that it takes 5 months per episode. So I'm still absolutely not in line with how this show's production. And I am going to say this about every large cast object show. You're too big for your own good, okay? I like the episode. The episodes that are releasing are great, right? And stuff usually. And like, they're fun episodes. It's just, why not make fun episodes for a show that can finish? Why are we making an inevitable cancellation? I don't know. Whatever. Um, then we end up having a couple of other things. No, yeah, actually, we end up having a couple of people talking. We end up having some interesting. The newspaper's interesting. Okay, so newspaper is like this gossiper. I don't know how. Like, I've been trying to nail down what the hell newspapers like freaking personality is. Like, I've been trying to describe newspaper. Even last time I kind of struggled. They're like egotistically think that they're cool, gossiping like mean girl style character. Is the way that I try to describe it, and that might be honestly completely wrong, but I genuinely just can't put it into words. But I find it interesting because they're mean to themselves, but they act all cool to other people. But like they're not mean directly. Like they wanna come off as a good, like as having connections, despite the fact that they dislike the connection. When a mean girl would be more like, oh no, yeah, she sucks, right? So it's not mean, but it is mean. Like you see what I mean? It's kind of weird. They're very interesting characters. As far as the characters go, I think that they're probably one of the most interesting because it's I think it's a mean girl who is trying to uphold an image. I think that's how I describe it. All right. Um yeah. Anyhow, we end up having the other fellas. Bull and Icicle hang out, which we know about that. So then, by the way, the cutest scene in this episode is absolutely this one here, 7 minutes. Seeing CRT and the lily pad more properly talk about it. CRT was so sweet with the egg. CRT was so sweet with this egg. It's like, oh yeah, I can. I'm just looking at it. It's cool. Like they're so sweet with it, and then they're gonna cherish it and everything. Like that is adorable. CRT is absolutely adorable in this episode, and it's nice to see more CRT and Lilypad because they're characters that got very neglected in the last episode. So they end up doing that, which is definitely a thing. So it was cool to see even Lilypad. We get to see Lilypad. Lilypad's a relatively chill character, not really doing too much, but yeah, they don't care that much. But then we end up having our intro heading into the second challenge. Second challenge, dodgeball. Dodgeball. If your members are all out, you are up for elimination. Catch a ball to tag them. So, catch a ball to tag them or get hit. And then the trick, there's only one ball where every team is going to be using. So only one person can have the ball at a time. All right, this challenge is interesting. Why? Because this challenge, okay, I'm going to be 100% honest. From a conceptual standpoint of a show, of like a results perspective, this challenge is bad. This challenge is not good because what is going on half the time you can't even tell. No, because okay, I don't know if it's just me, right? But in this type of challenge where there is people remaining, right? When there's remaining in a challenge like this, I always struggle to just catch who's here and who's not. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I just it's so hard to find out who's here, who's out, who got out here, who got out in that 1 second scene, and now they're important because they're important. Knifey got out like 12 minutes ago, so that's a thing. And then we got to think about that. But then there's this character that died, so they count, but they got caught. They caught the ball, but not with their hands, so they eliminate the other one that threw it. Then in 5 minutes, they're still there, right? Because of course, when you're out in dodgeball, you're still hanging around, so you can still impact the game, but you're out, so you're trying to protect your teammate, and you're still having conversations with them, despite the fact that you're not. You see how I don't get it that much? Like it's just kind of difficult to grasp who's in and who's out, especially because we don't have a graphic. Me personally, when we have a challenge like this, I love me a graphic. Like having, for example, what's the example I can give? If I'm not mistaken, there was one teapot a challenge. It's like one random early teapot challenge or something that's like get to the top or whatever. Like that T-Paw one challenge was to get to the top of the elevator. There was another challenge, but basically like you just have that list of the team, and like somebody gets tick green or something when they successfully arrived or whatever, right? Which means that here I would have absolutely done that. A graphic of the teams appearing as someone gets out that shows who's left, because that's just an important like that's just a graphic that gives you the information that you need. Like when somebody gets out, graphic, quick little graphic shows up top of the screen. It can be one little row, and then it shows the character icons, and one of them's gone. Like, and the red ones are the ones that's gone on that team. That helps you keep track of it, because it doesn't, like, it's just so hard to keep track of it. Like the only reason, I'm gonna be honest, again, I might just be bad. I might just have bad media literacy, or whatever it's called. You know, I might just have bad sight reading ability of media. But like in general, I would not be able to remember that half of these characters were out until they just said it, which they did happen to say it half the time. Oh, but I'm out. Like half the time, it was like, oh yeah, you were out because of X, Y, and Z. Because there's just so much to watch. um, that it's like, yeah. And the second reason why this challenge is kind of not that good is because it not only is this whole situation with the team, we're creating so much inter-team shenanigan that it's like there's very little character interaction that you can do. Honestly, you can't do that much character interactions. You're getting teams combining with teams, which just makes so many people present at once at any one moment, right? Like this type of thing that I say is when you've got a large cast object show, I feel like for the first while, in my opinion, you should absolutely keep it team to team, because like if there's already 7 people in one scene, right, which is one team, that's already a lot of people. Imagine you bring another team in to do an inter-team shenanigan, 14 people possibly impacting at once that can all realistically be there. That is so many people. You know, that's just 2 teams in this one. There might be 1 million, right? Like it genuinely is a thing. However, why would this challenge be picked? There's one major positive of this challenge, and it's that it leads to cool. It's very simple. This challenge has one major positive. It leads to cool animation. It leads to cool scenes of you getting hit by, of epic dodges, epic hits, right? Epic strategies, epic combos, epic battles, especially you know animators love animating a good battle, and all of that stuff. So absolutely taking massive advantage of that for this challenge. Like absolutely. I mean, honestly, they're civil for the first half. The second half, just like everybody's dying. We're just deciding. Oh yeah, no, you people die now. The writing team was like, okay, I'm bored, man. I'm so bored. Like, and then they were like, okay, sure, we'll let everyone die, right? And so they just do that at the time, and people are dying. There's epic fight scenes and all that stuff. Like, there's just so much going on. And I see why, right? Like in terms of a watching perspective, it is cool. It's cool visuals. All right, there's cool visuals, there's cool scenes. You get to see a bunch of battles, a bunch of stuff. Epic katana chainsaw scene with the fly swatter and the crystal, which doesn't have actually a specific name. Because I was really thinking, I'm thinking because it's like, not mistaken, the freaking, I don't know if it was in ODA or something, but which is a show that I don't know why it gives me tangentially related vibes. As also being that type of long show that's like this. Um, has like Charai as a crystal, so I was thinking, oh, do you have a specific name? No, you're just called Crystal. So that's the thing. And yeah, we just ended up having this thing. So, in general, my opinion is that this challenge is not very good because it doesn't get us to know too much about a lot of these characters, because they're just kind of fighting. They're just kind of like, yo, how do we throw a ball? So we don't really get to know too much. Um, uh, and like it's just hard to follow. It's hard to follow. There's nothing to assist you in following who's in the lead or who's in danger, right? There's literally nothing to tell you that, and it just becomes extremely difficult to track. And then, yeah, even though the channel leads to good visuals, okay, understand it leads to good visuals, and it's cool, and it's gonna be like, hey, that epic fight scene was so epic, but like, I don't know. I like looking at it from a more analytical purpose as well. other than just, hey, that fight scene looked cool. You can have fight scene that look cool and a challenge that makes sense at the same time, right? Like you can do both. So I will criticize it. In my opinion, this challenge wasn't a great challenge right now because there's just so many people everywhere and it just caused a mess. And we also end up having another extremely long episode. Like usually episode 2s are supposed to be shorter than the episode 1 by a margin. This one is, but only about 10 minutes, right? So it's like I don't know. That's my opinion on the challenge. I'm not a big fan of it, but I understand why they did it. I understand why people like it. It's just I would personally do something different. All right. So a couple of teams have some strategies. Middle class immediately decides, thanks to the watch clock, to hide in a very big bush and then proceed to stay. Because what's the strategy? The challenge specifically states that the first two teams to have all of their all of their contestants eliminated will be out, which all makes sense. So then, what is the solution to this issue? Don't get tagged. Like you don't need to tag other teams, but like that's not a rule. That's nothing. Nothing says that. Nothing says that at all. So you can just, yeah, indeed, go hide or just leave. Just don't be in the action, and you'll probably be safe just because of other teams getting rid of themselves. So it's actually a brilliant tactic. The reason, okay, so I was a bit worried about the middle class team because they were going to have a lot of disagreement, and in fact they do have a lot of disagreement, right? In the way that Menu just doesn't play along with anything, right? Menu pretty much just will ignore doing any challenge because it's barbaric, right? And all that stuff. So that's the situation. However, in this case, by Menu sort of extrapolating himself out of the team by just refusing to participate, that leads to the others, to the other minds of the team going along. So everybody's like, so the stopwatch ends up taking that idea, putting the spin on it, and then now we have a leader because I was worried that especially with Menu and the clock, they were going to have disagreements and the team wasn't going to get anything done. But since the Menu takes themselves out of the leadership role, we actually get to see Watch take charge, and Watch taking charge actually gives them smart plans, and then they become a super team because there's just a smart mind. It's like, when you have a smart mind that's gonna do strategy, it's gonna be good, right? So in general, it ends up being a very strong little idea here, and it's gonna be interesting to see if this continues into other challenges because I'm very excited about this team because they could just be OP, absolutely. And I don't mind myself an OP team. I like seeing when a team is just stronger and better than the rest. I'm absolutely a fan of that. Um, and yeah, they end up hiding in the bush. I personally think that the best idea is probably to not all hide in one place because then it only takes one person to find you and you're not going to be prepared. My idea would just to be everybody dispersing away because then somebody could find one of you. Like pretty much just play hide and seek. Go hide in 7 different places and like sure, somebody may find one of you, maybe 2, maybe 3, but finding all 7 of you before they've tagged another team that's going to be out in the open, extremely unlikely. So I would have personally split up hiding, but it's harder to, check, I guess, if everybody's doing it when that's when that's happening. So I understand. But then anyways, it's okay. It is so hard to discuss these episodes that are just kind of action galore because there's not too much to discuss here because like it's action, it's fun, it's cool to watch, but like there's not too much in depth. Photo album yet again gets very scammed in this episode by just kind of being licked by glue, being sort of disgusted about it. Anything photo, we need to see more photo album. We desperately need to see photo album do something because who are they? I don't know who they are yet. Genuinely, that is a character that has been currently done dirty by the show. It's gonna happen to someone with a cast of 57 billion. Oh my god, why? But it's like we still a thing. We end up having some interest moments. Incense ends up you just meditating. Window. Oh yeah, freaking yogurt, by the way, which I called lemonade in the last episode. It was one of the two. Ends up deciding to keep up with Window in a vow of silence. So they also zip up their mouth and eventually get more and more, Sad that they mad. I guess then they can't speak. They go more desperate to speak, basically. I mean, Window was already pretty desperate to speak, but like Yogurt is a talker. Yogurt is a yapper. Yogurt is a absolute player. So I don't. So having them like that is definitely a situation that happens to exist for sure. And then I think eventually they end up like imposing from not being able to talk at the end of the challenge, which is kind of fun. No, it's kind of fun. Um, and yeah, at this point, to be fair to Untitled, we were debating. Oh yeah, is Untitled that mean? Look, I think the kill count of this show so far is like just less. Like Untitled isn't even top one. It's got to be like one of the fellas here who has like murdered a bunch of people. CRT, we end up discovering here that CRT is actually an extremely powerful little thing when they want to be, because CRT is this sweet little fella, taking care of the egg. However, the egg ends up getting destroyed by the cookie because the cookie, tends to be rather uh mean. So there's like, haha, I got it. Like they specific, like Cookie is such a hater. There was no motive. Like there was no reason to even do that. Like there was no reason to go freaking specifically target the egg. Like very specifically. Like on purpose. And it was like, bro, what? That's crazy. And then we end up finding out that CRTs actually can freaking grow into an ultra killing machine 6,000 when they're angry, which is gonna be interesting because that is a detail that they've now made. So, I mean, I'm sure in one of the other episodes we're gonna be having, that type of story where it's like, oh, hi, you remember that ultra form you did that would really help us in this challenge right now to break this wall open, right? Like, I'm sure this is going to be a thing that's important in future episodes, but I think it's a very interesting form to show off here, to be honest, because it causes the possibility of Ben later doing some stuff, with that. It's the type of thing, okay, we're introducing details on characters now that we're hopefully going to be able to use later, either for them or against them, but, it helps build character to figure out more about them. It's kind of like how randomly in UBS we discovered that Teapot had a pirate ship, and it's like, okay, sure, maybe Teapot having a pirate ship doesn't make that much sense yet, but you can write it to make sense, basically. That's like the cool thing about it. So, the idea that this CRT can actually be extremely strong, I mean, sure, why not, right? I don't mind that at all. Like, if that's what you want to do, that is what you want to do. So, yeah, if a bunch of people get hit, and like so many people get hit, it's so hard to properly, like, judge this video, like proper discuss play by play, because there's way too many plays. So I'm kind of trying to generalize here a little bit. We have the team that ends up having the tactic of coloring somebody into a ball, and then when they color Teapot into a ball, so that way the other team will waste their time attacking them with the ball. Sure, however, okay, well, first things first, they don't successfully find the ball. They try to color Teapot into a ball badly, and it just ends up being an absolute disaster, right? But not only do they do that, they also flipping, like, get, bro, it's also just not a good idea, because if you think about it, right, it's like, the one thing that is very notable in this video is the fucking whistle that plays every 1 second, because Untitled makes sure to overuse it every time, which is kind of funny. I don't mind that at all. But like, there's no way a contestant would throw it. It gets hit, and then like you need to hear the ultra loud whistle, otherwise it's not gonna work. So in this case, it's not exactly work. They also do throw out a card or menu, which is the one person that surely does not care. But yeah, they're kind of doing a thing. As I said, there's the epic battle scene between Flyswatter and Crystal, which ends up being kind of fire. I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, we do get to see a lot of people dying, for sure. A lot of very brutal deaths happen with it. Like, ever since that fight scene, everything just went to shit. Just even on other unrelated plays, everything just went to shit. Everybody started dying. Like, the CRT exploded, the kite died, the other fella died. I mean, Crystal didn't die, but almost died. the The freaking so Fly Swatter got fucking impaled completely. Bucket Hat ends up also getting absolutely sliced up. Like there's some brutal deaths. Even the tiramisu also ends up getting absolutely brutally destroyed. Like everybody gets destroyed just massively. So yeah, it's just kind of tough. And then we end up having a couple of the teams that are up for Elam. So who's up for Elam, all right? After, an extra, but it's chaos. People get hit and everything. Apparently there was a cobra down there in the bush, that's fun to see that at least that team didn't coast along entirely. There are negatives to hiding in a weird place. Indeed, indeed. So the first team that was up for elimination was the Sharp. They weren't eliminated too far. I think it was the bro. Who was it? Was it the Sharpshooters or was it the Fresh Beats? Who was down first? I can't remember. I think it was bro. How did I remember? I think it was the Fresh Beats. Yeah, the Fresh Beats. They just didn't have too much of a plan really riding on it. Like they had a little bit of an attack strategy using Kite. However, they didn't really like Kite was kind of doing an attack strategy, but they couldn't really do too much, like in general. Like Boombox didn't really do anything. Dollop In didn't do the Wax Candle yet again very neglected from these episodes. I must say this candle's not getting a lot of screen time right now, and I'm thinking that they're probably gonna get eliminated because they did also get the last scene of getting kind of annoying. Oh hey, I tried, but no you didn't. Right? And the milk wasn't really there. There wasn't ever really a team that tried to split off a little bit from a tactic because while I said that everybody dispersing is the best idea, and it absolutely is. I'm surprised no team did the strategy of you hide, I attack. 'Cause I don't think there's any tactic that a team actually did. Like so many, like nearly every team except like one or two just decided to be out in the open attack, which just isn't. It's just not a good plan. Like it really isn't. Like I don't know. I understand that it's a bit anti-game to go hide, but yeah, it's just the best idea, And even then, like it works. Menu takes themselves out of the game, and I'm pretty sure doesn't even get tagged the entire time. And it's like, okay, like you see, it just works if you're out of the action. I mean, okay, a couple of other fellas were out of the action and got screwed over. Again, those are one-offs, right? Like if they get out of the action, you're still in. Right, well, the other team isn't. But anyways, on that team, I'm predicting West kind of probably gets out because they've kind of been cheated by the system. Just not getting a lot of screen time. Out of 57 people, it happens. Other than that, I'd maybe also think Dollop is a little bit didn't do too much. Like, there's the interesting potential with all characters, so I hope they stay. But yeah, they're kind of not doing much. And then the other team is Sharpshooters. They kind of get absolutely assaulted very near the end. I mean, they have a few hits immediately at the start with Wallet trying to, imitate Incense, and then later Isaac also getting hit nearly immediately. But like the other fellas, Knifey as well, trying to do that interfere. So then the only people left were like Drum and like Bed, and Bed basically can't move. Like, or at least can't move to a reasonable speed to where you would dodge a dodgeball, right, and can't grab anything. So that fella's kind of screwed. And then the drum fella's also just it's a 1v whoever. So that seems very easy to attack because Instance was just meditating in the back. Somebody finds them, which you see, like it happens if you go away, somebody might find you, but it's just if imagine everybody on the team went to their own corners to meditate, would they actually find every single one of them? I doubt it. Personally, I doubt it absolutely that everybody would be able to, that everybody will get caught. In my opinion, no. That is my honest assessment. So that's why that is my top one tactics to take over. But on the team who's getting eliminated, I'd predict Bed themselves, to be honest, because who would I want to eliminate on this team? I genuinely don't know. Like, I'd say Bed. I'd say Bed. They haven't done too many interesting things with Bed. Bed isn't really got too much of a connection with anybody yet. So I'm feeling that they can be the one to go. They're the biggest one on the voting screen as well, if that matters. Debatably, it does or doesn't. Um, while the other characters, I feel like they're kind of likable. I think, okay, I like Incense, but that is kind of because Candle from I is my favorite I character. I don't know if I've ever actually said this, but Candle is my favorite Inanimate Insanity character, which means that Incense being very Candle-like, I do naturally gravitate towards liking that character and therefore considering them easier for safety. However, I'm not sure if Incense actually would have that many fans, you know? I feel like no, because if I'm not mistaken, like Animatic Mushroom gets eliminated. So even though I personally would not eliminate Incense because really like that style of character, I do understand that they would probably be up there for leaving. All right. So that makes sense. But I would personally predict bet on one team and watch Candle on the other. Because yeah, the post-credit scene. What was the post-credit scene? I don't remember. Oh yeah, they're Cohen copying them again. Okay, this time it's not very important. Yeah, we didn't get too much of an update on the prior pirate experiences of map. Although we did see that map is now just very scared. This is very very scared of Chris. So it's like, oh no no no, you do not attack me with the katana. Yeah, regardless of anything that happens. So it just ends up being all like that, you know. And then, yeah, I mean, we can, of course, discuss the current state of the show just to wrap up here, WBS discussion. So, two episodes. We, of course, watched them. They're all quite long. My opinion is this show is all right. This show's good. It's animated very well. It's voice acted very well as well. I haven't mentioned the voice acting, which means it's doing a good job. Everything feels natural. Everything feels solid. Everything feels on time. Um, I do criticize the challenges a little bit. I don't think it's the best style of challenges that this show has done. Personally, I'm not gonna lie. And I also do kind of think that it does suffer a little bit from the trying to be BFB syndrome, where it's just sort of not exactly great. That I feel like this show isn't making it very far, you know? Like, I'm sure, like, again, the people, they're putting in their maximum amount of effort. I'm absolutely sure. But it's just like, how do you keep this up? How do you keep this up? Like, genuinely. You're gonna be making, what, a half-hour long video every 5 months? Like, a 5 hour long, not 5 hour long, a 30-minute long production every 5 months ish, right? For 10 years to have this show reach an end state. It's just I don't know. It's like it just adds on. It's somewhat. It's like it's that type of show that I think piles on to the general disappointment that I think a lot of people have to other object shows. Is that like, oh yeah, other object shows they have cool content, but I never watch them because they're never gonna finish, right? And it's like it feels with a lot of these shows like it's leading to impending doom, you know, in the sense where it's like, oh, you know, I can follow these characters and I can really like them, but it doesn't feel like we're gonna be getting anywhere, you know? So it's kind of difficult to be properly in a fandom of something that feels like it can collapse at a moment, right? Which is why, like, so I think many shows struggle with this, and I think other object shows don't pick up as often to try to make it to the big leagues, you know? Other object shows, they don't pick up that often. Because of, in my opinion, things like this, there needs to be a faith given in the process that we're not gonna be disappointed. It's not gonna be canceled after 4 episodes, and that we are gonna be getting to see these characters. And with a show like this, it's got great potential. Generally, these 2 episodes are really good, but it just becomes hard to believe. You know, it becomes hard to dream when we have seen so many object shows of its kind, of its style, of its inspiration take themselves down after 1 episode, 2 episode, because it was just too hard to make. It was just too hard to keep it moving, right? And it's that situation. It's what I see with this show. It's what I see with ODA. It's what I see with a couple of other things I've covered. It's just it becomes hard to believe in it, you know. And I really want to believe. I really want to believe in this show. I absolutely do because it's great. Many characters are excellent, right? The so many characters are excellent. The animation is excellent, right? the intro so good. The music is solid as well. Like there's so many things about this episode are absolutely excellent, but it's so hard to believe, you know? So I will be criticizing these because, yeah, I do believe that it is a thing that I will be criticizing. I'm never gonna stop my stand on this. Absolutely, large cast object shows in the way that they are like this are impossible to sustain within reason. Like it's just impossible. And it's I don't know what can be done about it in this case, but I will be absolutely pointing it out every time because I just feel compelled to. I have to state the claim. All right. However, episodes are really good, and for the next few episodes, I mean, I'm hoping that we're gonna be getting a little bit more interaction focus because, like, yeah, neither of these two challenges were amazing because the freaking dodgeball challenge, you're never too compelled to actually talk to people in it, right? Because you're just kind of throwing shit. Like you can strategize a bit, but not too much. And in the first challenge, you can't strategize. Like other than the initial strategizing, the actual doing of the challenge isn't really something that can be multitasked. Because usually most teams have found one thing that allows them to chop up the balloons to pop the balloons, but other than that, nothing really. So that means that, like, in general, there just isn't too, there hasn't yet been a challenge that's just directly that requires interaction as like a primary way of it functioning. So I would personally make a challenge like that, a challenge that has to have people speak to each other to get something to form. I don't have an idea at the top of my head right now. It is quite late, but like something along those lines I would absolutely consider because it just feels like the better way to go. For the next episode, of course, like this episode's fine. The second episode challenge is, I mean, I don't really like it for the reasons that I stated earlier, but I also don't mind it. Absolutely, I understand why it's there. But now, for a different challenge, like in the next episode, got to switch it up, and I think it's time to get some people to talk to each other, and then we get to learn about the characters that have been sidelined, like Wax Candle, if they even survive, the freaking you see, I don't even remember. Like Lever, for example, we haven't heard too much about Lever, right? We haven't heard too much about even like the gang, the prankster crew, other than their original prank. Haven't heard too much about them, right? Like there's just characters that feel like they have more things to say. Dollop as well, I think. Like there's just characters that feel like they have more to say, and a challenge that encourages them to talk would be very useful because then we we need one episode that's focusing more on writing the characters haven't been written that much, and then boom, we're complete. We're complete. Everybody, we have a picture of everybody because there's like 5 to 10 characters that are roughly missing, and then we pretty much covered all bases in terms of doing that. So I would recommend making the next episode something along those lines. But that's all I've got really here to say about WBS. This is a long episode, but it's late, so it's gonna just close itself off at a special. That's all. Let's do an outro. And with that, that is going to be the end of this video where we talk about UBS and WBS. It is late. I don't know what it is about the past couple of days, but it has been certainly a complicated vibe here getting these catch-up videos made. I don't know why I'm getting mega distracted, but yeah, we are in fact getting this video out. We'll have more videos out. I'm not sure about the length of them because I don't know why it has definitely been a little bit more of a struggle to get things done. I've just had other things that I also want to do. Like it's kind of there's that like dichotomy of there's things I want to do and there's things I want to do. So you kind of have to catch up. But then there's other stuff, and then I get distracted, and then there's other things to do, and then life happens, right? But either way, episode has released. That's cool. And we shall to be talking about more stuff in the upcoming days, indeed, because I am hashtag planned. But yeah, that's all for now. We're all cut up for this show, and see you next time. Goodbye.